Ladies and gentlemen, you want to know the real secret to removing toxic people forever? It's not yelling louder or getting the perfect comeback or winning the argument. It's learning not to play their game at all. Here's the truth. Toxic people can't survive without your energy. They need your reactions, the way a fire needs oxygen. Every time you defend yourself to them, every time you try to explain to someone who's not listening, you're just tossing logs on their fire. The secret thing that removes them forever is boundaries backed by silence. Boundaries are not about controlling someone else. They're about controlling what you allow in your space. You stop giving them access to your peace, your time, and your mind. And you don't have to make a speech about it. You just change your availability. When you stop showing up to their drama, you stop being a character in their story. And here's the magic. They'll go find someone else who will play along. See, you don't win against toxic people by beating them at their own game. You win by not playing. So the next time someone tries to drag you into a fight, remember this. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Protect your peace. Choose silence when words won't work, and watch how the toxic fades away. Because the moment you stop feeding their fire, it goes out. Boundaries are your silent bodyguards. They don't wear uniforms. They don't carry weapons. And they don't need to make a lot of noise to be effective. They simply stand guard over your time, your energy, your emotions, and your peace. You don't have to fight people to keep them from hurting you. You just have to draw the line. They can't cross. But here's the thing. Most of us were never taught how to draw that line without feeling guilty. We think boundaries make us selfish, cold, or unkind. In reality, they do the opposite. Boundaries are what allow us to be kinder, more loving, and more consistent, without being drained or disrespected in the process. Think about it this way. Every time you let someone step over your limit without saying anything, you're sending a quiet message that it's okay to treat you that way. And the truth is, some people will keep pushing until they see where you finally say enough. The danger is if you don't set that line early, you'll end up setting it when you're already angry, exhausted, and ready to explode. That's why boundaries work best when they're proactive, not react. When you set a boundary, you're not declaring war. You're simply saying, this is a level of respect and kindness that is required to be in my life. You're not trying to change someone else's behavior. You're making a decision about what you will and will not accept. And you do it without the need for yelling, shaming, or proving your point. Your silence and your absence become the message. Some people won't like it, especially the ones who benefited from you having none. They'll call you difficult, accuse you of changing, or say you've become selfish. That's when you have to remind yourself, you didn't change for the worse. You just stopped tolerating the worst. Those who truly value you will adapt to your boundaries because they want to keep you in their lives. Those who don't will try to test them until they realize you mean what you say. Boundaries also aren't about making people earn your love or attention. They're about making sure you can give them without resentment. Because when you let people take advantage of you long enough, kindness stops feeling like kindness. It starts feeling like weakness, and bitterness starts to grow. A boundary clears that away. It's not a wall to keep people out. It's a door you control, deciding who comes in and who does. The beauty of boundaries is they don't require constant enforcement. Once you're consistent, people quickly learn how to treat you based on what you allow. If you keep giving in when someone pushes, they'll keep pushing. But if you hold your ground calmly, firmly, without emotional explosions, they eventually stop testing you. It's like training someone on how to respect your space. And yes, there will be times when setting boundaries means losing people. But the truth is, you're not losing the right people. You're losing the ones who only valued you for how much they could get from you. You're losing the people who never respected your no and only stuck around when you said yes. And while that can hurt in the short term, it's one of the most freeing and self-protective moves you can make for your long-term peace. At the end of the day, your boundaries are an act of self-respect. They quietly say, I matter too. They protect you from burnout, resentment, and constant conflict. They give you space to heal, grow, and attract healthier relationships. And they remind you that protecting your peace is never something to apologize for. Is when you have clear boundaries, you don't need to fight to keep toxic people out of your life. They eventually walk away on their own, realizing they can't get past your silent bodyguards. And that's exactly how you win without ever lifting a sword. Control your responses, not their reaction. It sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest skills to master. especially when you're dealing with someone who seems determined to get under your skin. Toxic people thrive on pulling you into their chaos. They poke at your insecurities, twist your words, and create situations designed to make you lose your cool. Why? Because your emotional reaction is their fuel. Every outburst, every long explanation, every defensive argument is like serving them a 5-course meal. And if you keep feeding them, they'll keep coming back for more. The mistake many people make is thinking they can change someone's behavior by reacting strongly enough. We believe that if we just explain ourselves better, shout louder, or show enough hurt, they'll finally see what they're doing and stop. But toxic people don't operate on the same logic. Your pain doesn't make them stop. It often confirms to them that their tactics are working. They're not looking for understanding. They're looking for control. This is why learning to control your responses is such a powerful shift. It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending you don't care. It's about recognizing that your emotions are yours, and you don't have to hand them over to someone who's only going to use them against you. Controlling your response means taking a pause before you react. It means asking yourself, will what I'm about to say make this situation better? Or am I just giving them exactly what they want? Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Silence can be uncomfortable for someone who's used to you engaging every time. They'll try harder at first, raising their voice, pushing more buttons, dragging you back into the fight. That's when you have to stay grounded. Breathe and remind yourself that their reaction is not your responsibility. You can't control whether they calm down, apologize, or continue their behavior. What you can control is whether or not you let them hijack your peace. It's like standing in the middle of a storm and deciding not to get wet. You can't stop the rain, but you can open your umbrella. Your calm, steady response is that umbrella. And here's the thing. The calmer you are, the less satisfying the storm is for them. They might huff, puff, and try to blow your house down, but without your emotional energy to feed on, they eventually lose it. Of course, controlling your responses doesn't mean you stay in unhealthy situations indefinitely. It's not about enduring mistreatment and silence. It's about choosing when and how to engage, so you can walk away with your dignity intact. It's about ending conversations when they become unproductive and refusing to let someone dictate your emotional state. It's about understanding that their opinion of you doesn't define you, and their lack of respect doesn't diminish your worth. Over time, you'll notice something interesting. When you stop reacting the way they expect, they either adjust their behavior or they fade out of your life altogether. Toxic people need an audience, and if you're no longer providing the emotional stage they crave, they'll look for someone else who. And the best part, you don't have to push them away or start a dramatic conflict. You simply change the way you respond and the dynamic changes on its own. In the end, controlling your responses is about protecting your energy. It's a declaration that you're in charge of your emotional state, not the other person. You're no longer handing them the remote control to your mood. And once you master that, you'll find a new kind of freedom. One where you can walk through chaos without letting it live inside. Because when you stop serving them the meal, they eventually stop showing up at your table. And that's when you truly win. Distance speaks louder than arguments. There's a power in walking away that no heated debate can match. When someone is trying to bait you into a fight, they're expecting you to stay, defend yourself, and keep the energy going. They want the back and forth, because it keeps them in control of the moment. But when you choose distance instead of engagement, you take away the very thing they're fighting for, your attention. The reason this works so well is because most arguments with toxic people aren't really about solving problems. They're about winning. It's not about understanding each other. It's about exhausting you until you give in or blow up. That's why engaging usually leaves you feeling drained and unsatisfied. You might think you've made your point, but in reality they were never interested in hearing it. Your words just gave them more material to twist, criticize, or use against you later. Walking away changes the game entirely. It says without a single word, this conversation is no longer worth my peace. And the beauty of it is that you don't have to announce it, justify it, or make a dramatic exit. You simply remove yourself. You take your energy, your presence, and your willingness to participate, and you leave the battlefield. Silence becomes your loudest statement. Some people will interpret your distance as weakness, but that's only because they measure strength by how loudly you can fight. True strength is knowing when not to. It takes far more control to walk away than it does to throw verbal punches. Distance isn't running away. It's stepping back so you can see the bigger picture and protect yourself from unnecessary damage. Of course, creating distance isn't always easy. If the toxic person is someone close to you, a family member, a partner, a coworker, you might feel pressure to stay and hash it out. You might even be told that walking away means you don't care, or that you're avoiding the problem. But the truth is, some problems don't get solved in the heat of an argument. Sometimes the best solution is space. Space to cool down, think clearly, and decide how or if you want to re-engage. When you give yourself that space, you gain perspective. You can see the situation without the fog of anger or frustration clouding your judgment. And more often than not, you'll realize that not every battle deserves your presence. Some things aren't worth explaining, and some people